How's it going, everyone? Welcome to a bonus episode of the Sex Addicts Recovery Podcast. Realizing that I'm bypassing the regular intro to the podcast, my name is Jason. I'm a sex addict, and I am the host of this podcast. So instead of a regular episode, I am going to be posting information about the Bay Area retreat, as well as a reposting of parts of episode 30. For the next few months, I'll be working 6 days a week, so I haven't had much time to work on the podcast as I would like. I do have new recordings actually scheduled now. In fact, I recorded one last night, which will be out next week. In the meantime, I wanted to post a short bonus episode that I could edit together quickly. Last year, around the same time, I did another bonus episode where I talked about the retreat and reposted episode 74. There have been a couple of episodes of the podcast that I have had to pull at the request of the guest, and episode 30 was one of those. With episode 74, I was able to repost the episode after making some edits. And with episode 30, I'm going to be taking out the main conversation of that episode and just reposting the intro and outro, and I will get to that in a little bit. Back when we started the podcast, one of the ideas was to have this as a central place where we could send out information to all of the meetings in the Bay Area, people that were listening, and the podcast has grown significantly since then. But for this episode, the primary focus of the information is going to be localized to Northern California or the Bay Area. Every March, we have our annual Out of the Fog and Into the Light retreat, and this year it will be March 14th through 16th at the same location in Marin County. I will be posting links in the show notes of this episode, but I did post information on the announcements page of the BayAreaSAA.org website. On that page, there are links for registration for the retreat, as well as a link for submitting workshop proposals. Additionally, I added the PDF of the retreat flyer that can be printed and brought to in-person meetings. That flyer has QR codes that link to the registration pages I just mentioned. And if you are in the Bay Area and your meeting doesn't have the flyers available, please feel free to download the PDF and print out a few copies. So this year, the prices have gone down with the cost of so many things going up. It's really nice that we are able to reduce our prices for this year. If you're looking for more information about what it's like at our retreat, we had a fun discussion on episode 82 of the podcast. A few episodes later, on episode 89, that was a workshop that I hosted at the 2023 retreat, and that one was about the podcast. Episode 90 was all about women's experiences at the retreat. The very first episode of the podcast was recorded at the retreat back in 2019 while we were outside on our lunch break. And lastly, episode 128 was a workshop that I presented on Service Keeps You Sober. This year I plan to do a workshop on music and recovery, which might be recorded for a future episode. The first time I went to the retreat, it was a little bit scary, but ultimately it was such an awesome event that I've gone every year since then. Lots of workshops, meetings, outer circle activities. We've got a drum circle around a fire. We've got a dance. We've got lots of places to hike. My favorite part is the Talent No Talent show. Getting to meet new people, reconnect with old friends, and just have some great conversations around meals and hang out for an entire weekend of recovery. It's such an awesome thing. So if you are interested, please check out the links that I'm going to be providing and hope to see you there. So with that, I'm going to be moving on to portions of episode 30 due to the nature of the conversation that I had in episode 30 with our guest, David. He had since emailed me and asked me to remove the podcast from public viewing. I do have it up on a private link for anyone that is interested in hearing the full episode. You can always email me at jason@sexaddictsrecoverypod.com and I can get you the private link for that. But the episode has been pulled from the public. In doing so, it also cut out the intro and outro of that episode, and there was a lot of great information there. This was right at the beginning of my introduction to the band Heilung, who I have talked about a lot here on the podcast. I had mentioned them on episode 25. And in my conversation with David, he was really into the band. And so we talked a lot about them during our conversation. And in the email and outro for the podcast, I talked a little bit more about them in 2 of their songs. And so I wanted to repost that as well. In the years that have passed since recording this, I've been able to find the correct pronunciations of the 2 pieces of music that I played. This being right at the introduction of me talking about Heilung on the podcast, I did play a clip from an interview and talked about the various band members, Kai, Christopher, and Maria. The song Filia Iar Futhork is one that I use every week on a meditation meeting that I go to. The studio version is 20 minutes, which is the length of our meditation, and it is incredible to listen to while meditating. And so with that, the information that I think that I talked about on that episode was talking about the languages being used. The beginning of the song is Kai singing in German with Jonas doing a counterpoint to the vocal lines. And Maria sings in Old English. The song Futhork is going through the lines of the Old English rune poem. So each set of lines is based around the Old English runes. So what Kai is singing at the beginning and what Maria is singing at the end is the last part of the Old English rune poem. Kai in German, Maria in Old English, but the lyrics are the same. The other song that I played on episode 30 was Allfather Heiti. My confusion here in describing it is the song lyric is Allfather Heitir, which is a different word than Haiti. So that was my confusion back then. Yeah, so the 2 songs that I play on this are Filia Iar Futhork and Allfather Haiti, both coming from the Lifa ritual, which was at Castlefest in 2017. So being big fans of those songs, I wanted to repost that part of the episode as well as answering a listener email. And now, without further ado, here is the intro and outro of episode 30.
You're listening to the Sex Addicts Recovery Podcast, a place for sex addicts to share their experiences of recovery, to help break the stigma, myths, and misconceptions of sex addiction. This podcast may contain topics of sexuality, sexual trauma, dysfunction, or other things that may be triggering, so listener discretion is advised. Hello and welcome to the Sex Addicts Recovery Podcast. My name is Jason, I'm a sex addict, and I will be your podcast host for today. How's it going, everyone? Welcome to the real episode number 30 of the Sex Addicts Recovery Podcast. In the previous episode, I totally made a mistake thinking that it was episode 30 when it was actually episode number 29. Upon posting the episode, I had written episode 30 and said it in the recording, and as it was going up, I saw episodes 27 and 28, but no number 29. And quickly made the correction to the wording, but I didn't go in and re-edit the audio. Progress, not perfection. Letting go of that perfectionism. Just after that happened, I was able to go to my home meeting and select a reading on perfectionism. Doing what I can to let that one go. Anyway, welcome again to the real episode number 30. This week, I'll be sharing a conversation that I had with David from Long Beach. It was really awesome to connect with him. He found the podcast and wrote in and asked if he could be a guest. And I'm really excited to be sharing that conversation. In the previous episode with Tim R. from the UK, I had mentioned that I made a mistake in this episode. So in the conversation that I had with David, we were talking about step 9 and putting ourselves on our amends list. And I mentioned that I thought that it was someone at the Serenity on the Sound retreat in the Step 8 and 9 workshop that mentioned the higher power can forgive you, why can't you?
It was actually Tim in the recording from last week that he mentioned that. So anyway, for the reading this week, I wanted to read from the Green Book on Step 8. This is on page 47. Many of us were surprised when it was suggested that we put our own name on our amends list. We forgot to take into account the harm we did to ourselves. In our addiction, we often took poor care of ourselves and acted in self-destructive ways. We may have betrayed our own values or damaged our own self-worth. Putting our own name on the list helps to develop a sense of compassion for ourselves and encourages us to begin treating ourselves with care and respect. Like I mentioned in this conversation with David, that this is the first time that I've put my own name on my amends list in steps 8 and 9. While we were talking, we covered a lot of different topics, and towards the end of the conversation, we talked about the music of Heilung, who I had mentioned in episode number 25, and I'll be playing some clips of their music that we talked about in this episode. Before getting to the music of Heilung that we talked about in this conversation, I wanted to get to an email that I got just the other night, and this is from Jeff in Canada. Good morning, afternoon. Just started listening to your podcast on my semi-daily walk. Today I listened to episode number 25, which is Feeling Overwhelmed, and then 23. And the title of that one is Creative Energy, Music in the Outer Circle. Back to the email. I was feeling a bit overwhelmed before, but feel more grounded now. Thanks. And I quite liked many of the music clips you played. I am typically a classic rock to 80s pop kind of person, but those clips really picked me up. Thanks again. I will be back. And I love that you still burn CDs. I have a large box of blanks if you need them. LOL. Yes, I am still burning CDs, making mixes, and enjoying it. And I just got a new disc burner. So another episode where I really talked about a lot of different types of music, from John Denver to Bach to Metallica, Primus, India Arie, Modest Yahoo, Johnny Cash, and of course Tool, is on episode 9. And I think the title of that one is I Came to Believe, Finding a Higher Power Through Music, or Music and Recovery. It's basically a workshop that I have led a few times at our local Bay Area retreat and once at the International Convention. So check that one out if you're interested in how music can play into your recovery. So the music of Heilung has really factored a lot into my recovery lately. And it's not just me. I'm grateful to have met David and talked about that. A couple other program friends have been listening as well. Others seeking help from the anxieties of the world, wanting to meditate, slow down, reconnect with an ancient spirit, reconnect with their roots, has really led them to this music. And so I wanted to play a little clip before getting to the music of the band in an interview. And the band is essentially 3 people. Maria, who does the female vocals, Christopher, who does a lot of the low throat singing and is responsible for a lot of the music and loops that they use, and Kai, who does the more aggressive vocals. And Kai, in this interview, talked about why he thinks that people are really connecting with their music.
We have people that write to us that when they listen to Heilung, that they overcome depression. You know, we have people who use our music in ayahuasca ceremonies to, open up much more than before. We have I have several times heard that people who suffer from tinnitus gain relief when listening to that, and there's endless numbers of people who listen to it either in the concert or on headphones, and who really have really epiphanic experiences. Be it ecstatic through dancing, or be it meditative, completely coming to rest. And reconnect to themselves, to the matrix, to the person that they're meant to be. Something like that. Something very simple.
In that interview, Maria talked about some of the songs that they're just this wall of sound, just pushing through, pushing. And then after like 10 minutes of it, it's a cathartic release. And I have not been able to pinpoint exactly what it is or why it works, but it has done something for me. So if it connects for you, awesome. If it doesn't, that's fine as well. I don't really want to make this a high-lung podcast, but something that is going on with me currently, reconnecting me to my higher power. So I really wanted to share that with everyone. So the music, the songs that we talked about, the two pieces that I'm going to be playing here, the one that David mentioned was called Al-Father Haiti. Trying to pronounce the DH, it's a little bit like a TH. Al-Father Haiti. And it sounds like in the song he says Al-Faga Haitir, but I'm not quite sure exactly how it's pronounced. And that one, I'll play the clips for in a little bit. It is a form of incantation song that in Old Norse is called Galdir. And Galdir is kind of a spell incantation, combination of words, chanting for magical power. I am just finding a lot of this stuff fascinating. Ancient Norse pagan stuff has been interesting to me. I've been watching the television show Vikings and catching up on that. So a lot of this is playing into that as well. And I'm getting to learn how to pronounce things and what's the origin of a lot of this stuff is. I have no clue, but it's brilliant. And the other song is called Filia Iar Futhrok. And Filiar, that term means follower or protective spirit. And it is just a mesmerizing piece of music. The beginning is in, I think, old High German. It could be Proto-Germanic, but it's two voices going back and forth. Basically, Kai is kind of doing a little bit of a chant in the beginning, and one of the other background vocalists is kind of bouncing his words, kind of offset like in a round, like a row your boat type of thing. I'll play a little bit of that here.
Bleibt Ekel jedem Edeling, wenn faulendes Fleisch sich kehrt, stoisch, klar, grausam, kühl, fahren die Gaben hin, verfaulen Gaben, Freude bricht, fort, Verträge brechen, ja, bleibt Ekel jedem Edeling, wenn faulendes Fleisch sich kehrt, stoisch, klar, grausam, kühl, fahren die Gaben hin.
And after that bit, Maria comes in with her voice, and I believe the words, the translation that I've seen, the translations are the same. I'm not sure what language she's singing in, but again, this slow beat, the low drone, and her soothing voice really has me drifting off. So I'll put this on my headphones, close my eyes, and meditate whenever I'm feeling stressed at work, or if I just need 10 to 12 minutes of reconnecting, I'll put this on. so mesmerizing. And kind of the flip side of that is what I talked about earlier, the Galdra. And this song is Allfather Heiti. It is a praise to Odin. The beginning is a dedication to Odin's spear. Kai going back and forth, the call and response with the warriors. And I'm not sure if I mentioned it, when Heilung performs live, they also have additional singers, lots of percussionists, and warriors up on stage with shields and spears. And so they are part of this song as well as a few others. And I mentioned that this song is part of my You've Got This playlist. So whenever I need to feel energized, whenever I need that little bit of extra energy, I put this on. And the rest of the song is reciting the names of things that are involved with Odin: his wolves, his ravens, his horse, his ring, and the various names of Odin. And it just it starts off with Christopher and Kai doing the throat vocals, and then each passing round of the incantation, the warriors join in, more percussion joins in, more instrumentation, and it just builds and builds and builds, and it's mesmerizing, it's energetic, and I absolutely love this song. Such an amazing, energetic piece of music. I love this. And like with so many of their songs, when it's playing and I need to stop, it's hard to find a good place to stop the music because the beats keep driving. A lot of times when I am pulling up to my parking spot and the song is right in the middle, I'll just keep the song playing until it's done, or I'm at a good breaking spot. But it is so awesome. I hope you really enjoyed this music. I'll be sharing some more of their songs in the future. That's about all I have for this week. So if you are interested in leaving feedback, you can leave that at the email address feedback@sexaddictsrecoverypod.com, or contact me personally, jason@sexaddictsrecoverypod.com, if you wish to be a guest on a future episode. And Heilung ends a few of their songs with the words Alu is Urki, which means may it be of help. I thank you so much for listening to this episode this week, and as always, keep coming back.
The views and opinions contained in the Sex Addicts Recovery Podcast are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of the Bay Area Intergroup or the ISO of SAA.